Well, it's a pleasure to welcome back to the show the director of the Trends Research Institute, Gerald Celente. His team produces the Trends Journal with hard-hitting, in-depth analysis of the economic, socio-political, and cultural trends. Hello, Gerald.
Hello, Chris.
Now, I wonder if we could begin our discussion here with a topic that has the country up in arms, or maybe I should euphemistically say up in pants, and that's the pat-downs at the airport checkpoints. I know you've been following this closely. The chat rooms are filled with comments, Gerald, from foreigners who say they're not going to fly to the U.S. And I think that half the deceased fascist dictators out there are green with envy right now over these TSA tactics.
As you may know, I was on Fox and Friends recently. It's on our website, trendsresearch.com. And what I began it by saying is that let's go back to see how this started. It all began, the fascism, with the Patriot Act, which really should have been called the Raping of the Constitution Act. And at every level, government's intruding more and more into our lives. And now they've gone over the tipping point. They think it's all right for anybody to stick their hand down your pants. What kind of twisted mind came up with this? I'll tell you what kind of twisted mind. The imbeciles in Washington. They're twisted at every level. And they keep coming up with one over another ridiculous schemes that either cost us in our lives, or cost us our money, or rob us of our dignity. And these aren't empty words. When I say cost us our lives, look what they've done. They've led us into wars that are now patently false. I don't care who supports them or doesn't. The fact is, we were told we went into Iraq because Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. And then I heard the Royal Bush out in the book circuit out there, Bush Jr., saying that the point was that even though he was wrong, the world is better off without Saddam Hussein. That's not any excuse. Yeah, I'm sure those communist Chinese are happy to see another dictator gone, or the Brazilians could care less, or the Argentinians. The fact is that the government keeps taking the people down paths of ruin. And when I say rob us of our money, that's what they're doing now with this scheme of this QE2, white shoe boy language for the quantitative easing 2. It's really just, as you well know, creating digital money out of thin air, not worth the paper it's not printed on. And then they give our money to the banks when they're in trouble. So first they rob you of your lives, they rob you of your money, and now they're robbing us of our dignity.
I think you make some fantastic points there. I mean, there really is, Gerald, a disconnect between those that are calling the shots and what we're seeing implemented by the government. That's one important point you make. Another one, I think, is this idea that these actions are innocuous. At the end of the day, it's incredibly detrimental to the psyche of every single American, particularly an assault or an affront to our personal freedoms. You also hit it home, I think, when you talk about how this is the culmination of many assaults on our freedom. And we're talking about taking away our freedoms and giving those freedoms to the government. We're actually expanding the government's power as we give away what our forefathers fought to preserve.
Yeah, and look who's taking them away from us. Look at the guy that got us into this whole X-ray scanner scam, Michael Chertoff. Remember following the Christmas Day bomber? 2009, Christmas Day bomber. This guy made to the airwaves the former Homeland Security czar. I love that name, czar. Isn't that wonderful? You know, those people that were so disgustingly arrogant to the people that they oversaw that they caused the Russian Revolution.
You know, people forget, don't they, Gerald, that czar, kaiser, and king are all synonymous.
That's right. And so now we have this Homeland Security czar, and now he has his own company, Chertoff Group. And what does he do? He hits the airwaves telling all of the people that are fearful that we need these X-ray scanners. What they left out of the picture was that he represents Rapiscan, the company that sells these things. And by the way, it's also reported that the CEO of Rapiscan just went over to India with President Obama on his recent trip. and that the underpants bomber could not have ignited that without a electronic device or something to create a very high heat. So this was all a scam to begin with. And what they do now with the groping and the humiliation in public is so that people will go through the scanners and just accept it. What we're seeing, Chris, is a subjugation of the American public by people who live above the law and do not have to go through these humiliations. These aren't czars. Well, I should say they are czars. They're not protecting us at all. You don't see the top people in Congress or any of the congressmen that go on these flights, as long as they're accompanied by security, they don't get frisked up. And the bankers have their private planes. And when are people going to grow up? If you want to have a terror attack, you want to think of 1,000 different ways of doing it. How about all these private planes? Load one of those up with bombs. Hey, how about poisoning the water supply, bombing malls, or any kind of biological terrorism? No, this is just more of a subjugation of the people.
Very salient points. Your comments on the czars that we have appointed here, not elected. It's just eerily reminiscent of all the things that we were fighting against here as a nation, this grand experiment. I don't want to wax too poetic here or try to sound like a history professor, but I think most of us recall those tales of how our first president declined the title of king and set the precedent for the rest of us. We're not about titles, one-upmanship, trying to be bigger and better than our neighbors. Instead, we're going to be about individual freedoms, but also the recognition that we're all one in this republic. But, I wonder if we could also move on and talk about the security gap at WikiLeaks and their website. Folks who don't already know, the WikiLeaks webpage offers rumors and information not available to the general public. I guess you probably heard that a low-level military intelligence officer put thousands of these documents up on the webpage. And do you have any comments on this, Gerald?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are people out there like this Congressman Clown King who wants to call this guy a terrorist. Why?
How dare he inform us?
How dare he? Well, they're lying to us. How dare he tell us a different story? How dare he expose the incompetence and the high school level ridiculousness of this diplomatic double talk that goes out?
Gerald, I think we should appoint him the truth czar.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe, we should all just listen to what they tell us to believe. Hey, Chris, read my lips. No new taxes. I didn't have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. I smoked, but I didn't inhale. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. Hey, listen, elect me. You're going to see change you could believe in. I'll bring in all the same old people and call them new. In my administration, I'll keep those wars going, and I'll bail out the rich guys. How can anybody believe the government? This is the new journalism of the 21st century that we're seeing unfold, because the corporate media, of course, they're corporate media, so what do you expect from them? They folded a long time ago. They bowed down. This is breaking news. This is real news. The United States is going to try to play it down, but it's not going to go away. There's going to be more and more of these leaks showing the incompetence, failures, and the ineptness of the so-called government. They fail at every level. Hey, how about health care? Let's fix that. No, I have a better one. Why don't we have a war on drugs? We'll spend a couple of $100 billion, make our friends rich, and we'll call it a success every now and then. Hey, no child left behind. We'll reform education. When are people going to grow up? Everything the government touches, they turn to junk. And that's what you're